Hello, and welcome to Collaboratory, the show where Mike Morris improvises a storyboard with a little help from our audience, and we learn about storyboarding along the way. If you're joining us live, we are looking for characters, a setting, and a conflict. Don't be shy. Feel free to jump in with prompts and any questions you might have about storyboarding. Mike, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. We have a snow warning in Montreal, so I'm just watching the snow roll in.
Oh, that's great. Right here in Southern California, it's a nice, brisk 65 outside, maybe. Blue skies. Yeah, it's pretty outside. It feels like spring almost.
I'm jealous. For those of you who are typing in prompts, I spotted a challenge on Twitter from storyboard artist Abigail Lee called February, which provides prompts all month long for storyboard artists. We'll include a link in the show notes. Some of the prompts include road trip, heist, grand entrance, which I think are all really fun premises.
Yes, but all things it is February involve cows. So all storyboards are to involve cows or dairy products of some kind.
Okay, February.
Exactly.
And
right?
Well, we wait for the prompts to come in. I wanted to ask you a few questions about
Sure.
getting hired as a storyboard artist.
Okay.
Mike, how did you get your first job in animation?
My first job in animation, I was about to graduate from CalArts, and a couple of fine folks from The Simpsons came around to do a presentation because at the time there was a big need to fill spots on the show. So my boss that I just got done working for, Mr. Mark Kirkland, came down with Karen Carnegie, now Karen Johnson, who used to be the president of the Animation Guild, also a Simpsons person, came down and gave a presentation, and they were basically recruiting. So I applied, and they took like a bunch of new recruits, and I was lucky enough to get in on that little wave, and I ended up working at the Simpsons for almost 9 years. So at which point I had been and done a lot of the stuff at The Simpsons, and it was awesome. But I felt like it was kind of time to try something else. And a buddy of mine from school had called me and said, "Hey, there's this other show going on in Disney TV called Future Worm. Why don't you try out for it? We're looking for board artists." And I said, "Great, yeah, sign me up." So I did it and was able to get that job, which was awesome. A lot of it, I think, is just, being two things: being a friendly person who gets along with folks very well and has, friends. Make friends and be good at what you do. So when your friends recommend you, they're not disappointed, or they're not. You don't cast a bad shadow on them. Essentially, you want to fulfill your end of the bargain for other people that are recommending you. So be a good person and be good at what you do.
That's always good advice. I'm seeing a lot of enthusiasm in the chat about road trip, so I feel like that's where we want to start.
Road trip. All right.
Road trip.
So we got a road trip. Now we need characters, and we need a conflict.
Yeah, so we need characters who are going on a road trip. Why are they going on a road trip?
Well, we don't care why they're going on a road trip. We just need the conflict on the road trip. But we need a setting. We need a setting outside a road trip. What are they road tripping through?
So geography, area, planet.
Ooh. What are we seeing? For some reason, I want to put your avocado in this as a passenger or one of the drivers, or a driver.
Okay. Laura Frankie in the chat has suggested mer people road tripping on land.
Mer people road tripping on land?
In a water car.
In a water car.
That sounds wild. Toon mentioned graffiti artist. Chaos Thoughts suggested desert. Or dessert. Is that 2 S's or 1 S?
1 S is desert, 2 S's is dessert.
It's a desert.
It's a desert. Okay. Whew. Thank
Yeah.
goodness, because all that whip topping is a lot of line mileage. So I think we need to do establish desert. So let's get some desert on the board here. Go to the background layer. Um, and I think I'd like to try something else besides just our normal everyday kind of establisher that we've
Cactus,
generally done on
tumbleweed.
the show. I think we need to do like a nice big foreground element this time. And let's do I think cow skull or something like that. See, I think we can do something more interesting than cow skull. Let's try that again. Oh, you know what? I'm going to use this fancy tool that we have now that just basically will opaque something for me. So, boop, 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 and pop. So that is so cool. Just so you know, people. All right, so let's do dinosaur skull. How about that? That could be cool.
I like that.
Let's do dinosaur skull.
Which dinosaur are you going with?
Of course, I'm gonna go with T-Rex because I like T-Rexes. I think they're cool.
All right.
And it's a very easily recognizable. So you can, gotta take it off some of these settings.
Hadrosauruses are also fun, but it's hard to draw without reference.
I think you could do a bit of the skull cavity there, and have it half buried, and then of course put some desert foliage in there, scrubby plants. They all look sort of sharp. Not all of them, all the time, but rocks, stuff that's like half buried. Instead of that, I'm going to make my brush larger because I can, and I will. But now I can go back to what I had before. All right, so let's do this. Then in the background, we're going to do, let's just turn this off for a second. Let's get our big brush back. Let's do a nice road. That looks like a baseball bat. There's a trick with doing some of this stuff. Because you can hold shift to make your line straight, but that does not actually take into account the pressure sensitivity. So you can make a line that's actually tapered by just using your pressure sensitivity, which is pretty great. All right, so here's our road. Let's use our eraser. We'll put some dashes in it. All right. Let's get some more desert stuff happening here. Let's do some Monument Valley sort of action. That sort of high desert stuff.
There's fun ruins in the background.
Yeah. So there's like, let's go on draw behind, and we'll put some more sort of atmospheric stuff behind there. So we can really feel the desertness of this. Go back to our smaller pencil and start, roughly blocking in some smaller details, enough so we can tell kind of what this is, but not enough so where it's overly labored. And we'll put in some plants and stuff, and maybe the odd, let's do it this way. The odd power pole. But that's going to be too tall because we have a foreground element, so we got to make that smaller. So when we turn on our foreground element, we want the foreground element to cover so much of that. So when we reveal it, it's an actual reveal and not something else. So in this, there's the, what do they call those on the top of the, I know they're a conductor of some kind. No, the wires. Yeah, of course. But these little like conductors that keep the power going.
Oh,
I know there's a name for them.
Transformers, maybe?
Possibly. Or the meets the eye, whatever they are.
Something like that. Yeah, exactly. They're robots in disguise.
Yeah, exactly. So we can take that and just copy it and move it along. And of course, we'll make it bigger because it's going to be going forward in space. Just that. Move it over. Go forward in space. Just get a little bit so it's not. See, we don't want to get into this area because this is so nicely decorated that we don't want to mess with that.
Or create tangents or anything that would be unpleasant.
Well, we don't want to. We don't want it to compete. That's the biggest thing. We don't want the competition between those two elements. So that would present a problem for us. Oops. So we're going to do what we can to make those not compete against one another. And doing so, I think will require it to be moved just ever so slightly back so that when we do this, we can just grab these wires, just have those go through, and that's not going to disturb anything. I just had a Gollum flashback, and that won't be very nice, will it, Precious? Okay, so we have this, we have that. We can even do just a little hint of a thing over here, so it's not totally out of left field. And some more of this. We got some more foliage. Maybe we got some, tumbleweed action happening here, but it's not, totally too. Again, we don't want to overlabor this. All right, so we have that. We have our foreground element. Now we need some sort of crazy cool car, right? All right, so what do you think? Should it look like a giant aquarium? Maybe like the Homer from that one episode in season 2 where he meets his brother. Let's see, an aquarium type car. Maybe something that
we saw one for a hot tub car.
Hot tub car. Okay. Mer people in a hot tub car.
So I guess it'd be sort of like a merfolk convertible.
Sure. Give it some big. What about a merfolk hot rod?
Merfolk hot rod. I see someone suggested a 1979 Ford Pinto, which sounds dangerous.
Yeah, that sounds like explodey. Maybe the conflict is that they're driving that car and they're worried that it's going to explode.
This is incredibly unsafe.
Yeah, this is really unsafe. Let's see. I think we could go a little wackier, though. I think we can go. I'm thinking like something that kind of looks like a weird. Like something that a normal auto manufacturer would never design. This almost looks like a whale plane.
I was thinking maybe it almost looks like a Roman chariot.
Oh yeah, it kind of does, doesn't it? A little bit. Yeah, I could see like the horse. Like here's the chariot part, and the horse would be like right here. Okay. Whoops. That was not something that I wanted to do. It's really weird. What happened there? Okay. No. Well, what about this? What is it? Does it have wheels or does it have some other sort of propulsionary method? Okay. start over
We're
again.
looking for wheel suggestions. So if you have any ideas on what the car should look like, please continue sending them in. Mike, I wanted to ask you, what does an application for a storyboarding position look like? Like, do you typically include a portfolio, CV, cover letter?
Yes, yes, and yes. Um, well, most applications. I mean, I'm currently in between gigs myself, so I have a little bit of experience in this area right now. Most recruiting sites have some sort of online form that you're doing. They're going to ask for a portfolio, of course. They're going to ask for um, any kind of experience that you've got. Typically that comes in the form of a resume or a CV. For those of you who don't know the difference between resume and a CV, do you want to explain that a little bit? Like, what's the
Yeah.
difference between a resume and a CV? Because I mean, you know this stuff.
So typically, a resume will have your work experience in terms of jobs, and a CV will have your work experience in terms of projects that you worked on.
Some more like accomplishments, right?
Yeah,
Than anything else.
they
So
both
let's
tend to serve similar purposes. So you usually, for a posting, will give one or the other.
or you could be like that, super person who does both, and you're just like, yeah,
Here's my
not
resume
only have
and
I worked
CV.
on all this stuff, but I've done all this stuff too. And I'm awesome. That's why you should hire me more than that other person who's also applying for this job. And also the 50,000 other people that want to get into animation that have applied for this job. All right. So it's going
Yeah.
to have
So,
almost like a reverse teapot looking thing to
oh,
it.
I like that because then you have sort of a water element reference too.
Yeah. So water container of some kind. And then so we don't necessarily want to show them inside quite yet. So I think silhouettes are the nice play here. All right. So let's get something with a fill brush. Put that behind.
I feel like the steering wheel needs to have sort of a trident element.
A trident sort of element to it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sure. Yeah, we can do that. Well, and because we're probably going to go inside the car in a minute. I have a feeling. Now, is this like couples romance trip, like honeymoon style, or is this family vacation? That's really the crux of what we need to decide in the next couple minutes.
All right. So we're going to look for that from the prompts then. Um, Mike, how do you
Yeah.
typically find out about job opportunities in storyboarding?
Um, there's sites like LinkedIn is a good place to look for stuff. I mean, there's job boards. There's just, hey, my buddy's got a show going on. You should apply. And there's lots of different ways of finding out about things. You know, a lot of things do happen by word of mouth. And
Yeah.
so,
So Toon Boom
again,
also has a job
be
board
nice.
at toonboom.com/jobs. And there's also an amazing Google Doc spreadsheet maintained by an animator by the name of Chris Main, which we can include a link to in the show notes.
You should. You absolutely should. After I get a job, so I don't have to compete with all these wonderfully talented
Right,
people that are
yes.
watching our show right now. I'm just kidding. If I wasn't confident
Without the
enough
fun.
to do that, then I shouldn't be in this business. Okay. So we have our foreground element. We've got that. Now let's do a little bit of magic here with this. Um, and I'm going to extend out part of this set a little bit because I want to not only get a nice little pan going on.
Some parallax.
So yeah, we need to get a little bit of something. Well, if we were going to do like some serious parallax, we'd have to split that up into elements and then scoot it out in 3D, which we really don't have time for. I wish we did, but we don't. So we're just going to scoot some of this stuff around and do some layer motion cheating. Well, layer motion simulation. Let's call it that. Okay. So I'm going to turn on this little guy right here, which shows, hey, I'm animating, which gives us this nice little keyframe right here. So I'm going to push end, go to the end of, oddly enough, yeah, it goes to the end. And we'll get this keyframe and put it here. Well, that's a camera keyframe, which we're also going to have. But going back to this layer motion tool, pushing end on your keyboard is going to get us to the last frame in that panel, at which time we are going to add another keyframe. At which time we are going to pull this down to reveal the road. We're also going to zoom in a little bit here so we can move it out of the way entirely. And then this here, we're going to add a keyframe, and we're going to push home, which brings us to the front, or the first frame of that. And this is also going to go up a little bit. So now what we have, as we can see, is this sort of a reveal. Now
the car is flying.
The car is flying. So we don't want that. We're going to animate the car as well. We're gonna set a keyframe, not at the very beginning though. We're gonna set it just a little bit farther back. So now we're gonna take this guy and shrink it down ever so slightly, and then pushing. Oh, we don't want that. Gotta go. You have to go actually on the keyframe for this to work properly. I'm just gonna turn that off for a minute so we can get a good bearing on where we want to start this whole thing. We're going to start it off camera because we don't want to compete time-wise with the reveal that we're doing. So that's why the keyframe is set back just a little bit farther. And then end, and we're going to take it and move it this way. We're going to make it bigger. So it can be just like that. And now we have a shot where the car is not only on the road, but we get this cool like that. Now,
that looks great.
this is where our camera comes into play, because we barely get any time with seeing the actual car. So we're going to take this camera and move it just to the end of the road here that we still have some space for, and open it up just enough so we can see some more of that Monument Valley stuff. We'll go to the background and then just do a little background extension. So grab some of these keyframes here. Just stick them over here. That's kind of cool too, though. I don't know. But then it looks like it's just, yeah, super weird and moving faster than it should. At which point we'll also grab this power pole, deselect the wires, just copy and paste that, bring it over here, since now this element being contained inside this shape isn't going to compete with the rest of it. It'll just look natural and like it always was there, or should have been there. And we're just gonna fake this a little bit. I don't know. You know, there's a wire there. We don't have to overlabor it. If we really want to get like super into it, we can. But all right, so we have our first shot: mer people in the desert. All right. Okay, where did you say that Grand Canyon was again? You know. All right. So we can, even if you want to, we can either, we don't want to necessarily extend out the shot, although technically we could, but we would have to also make the layer motion such that the car is off screen. And then we'll duplicate that artwork, delete all the keyframes out of it. And by deleting all the keyframes, I mean turning off all of these nice little things, or just deleting the first keyframe and it ends where it was when we left it. Just turn that off since that's now off screen. And then delete that keyframe so this thing doesn't move at all. That's when we'll turn it off. So it stays put. Because it has no place else to go. So we got that, and oh, hello, we're in the desert, and there's a dinosaur skull, and now we have just that little bit of time that we can stay on this scene to give it a little bit of a something to your audience to hang on to for a bit. Okay, next shot. What do you think? What are you thinking? What's our conflict? We don't really have a conflict.
So I saw one suggestion in the chat, which is maybe they forgot their pet seal at the gas station.
Ooh, that's pretty good. What else we got?
We don't have a lot else. We need more suggestions for conflicts. So please give us a conflict. And while we wait for those to come in, Mike, when you apply for jobs in storyboarding, what kind of research do you do for a given opportunity? Do you sort of look at what the studio produces, what some of the directors are doing?
Oh yeah, I mean, you always look at what the studio is producing. Like, I personally, I like to keep the projects that I work on something that I can show the rest of my family. So I tend not to work on shows that involve a lot of, the more gratuitous parts of media production.
Okay, we're getting more votes for the seal. Laura Frankie suggests they want to go to a different tourist destination or to different tourist destinations. So maybe like a roadside attraction, like the world's largest cactus.
Okay. What do you think about seashell seats?
Oh yeah, clams. Seas. I can't say words today. Those sound good.
Clamshell seats.
Clamshell seats.
That's
one is they've run out of gas.
Ooh.
That's kind of a classic.
What about they ran out of gas or they're running out of gas and it's starting to get really hot in there.
Oh, I like that.
Because the water would tend to boil and heat like this.
Ooh, that can get really dark, but I kind of like the conflict.
I mean, well, it's definitely a conflict. I mean, deserts, man. What are you gonna do? But yeah, you're right. It is a little dark. Maybe they're not there yet, but the threat is there.
Getting a little uncomfortable.
Yeah. Is it hot in here, or is it just you? No. So we got, and we're not gonna do tons of research into what a clamshell looks like. This is just going to be from imagination and a generic manufactured seashell seat or clamshell seat. All right.
Now,
those are on the wrong
someone
layer.
Who sells the seashell seats, or are those included with the car?
Oh, these are custom jobs for sure.
Okay, and would you purchase them by a seashore?
Well, yeah, from a lady named Sally.
Yeah, so Sally's selling seashell seats by at the clamshell seat store.
Yeah, at the seat store by the seashore. We'll give a little bit of give a little bit of the bowl here. Let's get a slightly larger bit of brush. We'll just do the a very basic background. Fill that in a little bit. So if you don't know that Sally sells seashells by the seashore, the tongue twister is often used by actors when they're getting ready, the red leather, yellow leather thing, so they don't get all tongue-tied when they're on stage.
Unique New York.
All right, so are these mer people going to be like standard mer people, or is these going to be like the like freaky Harry Potter ones, or what are you thinking here? Classic.
I kind of feel like sea monkey style mer people.
Sea monkey style more people.
Yeah, give them a little bit of sort of aquatic features.
Okay, and this. What relationship do these two aquatic mer people have to one another?
I think there is the suggestion that they are a couple.
They're a couple. Okay. So we'll give her some eyelashes here. Just
chat approves of sea monkey style mer people.
Okay, sea monkey style mer people. It is. I mean, we're already drawing it, so.
Now, I do think that sea monkey is a brand name, so these are technically aquatic primate mer people.
These are Schneer Toy brand sea monkeys.
Perfect.
And the trident style. Let's put this one down here at the bottom, so he doesn't stab himself if there's an accident. I mean, they haven't learned the concept of airbags yet.
Well, why would they have airbags? They're underwater.
Well, bubbles, man.
Ooh,
bubbles. You would definitely be able to.
Suggestion in the chat suggests having condensation on the outside of the glass.
Okay.
Because it would be fairly. Although, would there be condensation if this was the desert?
That's a good question, because condensation relies on some sort of cold
moisture in the
moisture in the air. So I would say it would be more of a evaporation problem than anything else. She wouldn't have a fan. How would you cool yourself down in water if you don't have any way to do so?
I mean, you could go with the SpongeBob route, where although you are underwater, you have like glasses of water and you have fans.
Let's not do the SpongeBob. I think we can come up with something a little bit more on the creative side. So, chat, hit me. What do you got?
Yeah.
How do
you cool yourself off when you're underwater? All right, well, one suggestion is ice cubes. That popped up immediately.
Oh, ice cubes. Good call.
So maybe holding like ice cubes up to her head.
Yeah, I like it. Because, I mean, that's how you would do so, right? You just have to find something colder than the water that you're in, or some sort of, a bag of some kind. Maybe do like a hot water bottle only, like an ice pack.
Yeah. And if I'd assume that if she let go of it, it would float.
It would. I imagine that it would. So, let's do standard shell wear.
Sounds good to me.
We're not gonna get really into the anatomical area of drawing these. Maybe we'll give some like arm fins, right? Arm fins are cool.
Yeah.
She's got some arm fins. And she's got, patented fish flakes. Because, what's a road trip without road trip snacks, right?
Yeah, yeah. You got the fish flakes. When they eat them, do they sprinkle them like in front of themselves? And how would that work?
I think so. I think it would be just more like a, there was
Create a
a
cloud of
show.
it.
I mean, I had mentioned the show Future Worm that I'd worked on, and we had a character on that show called Manchovy, and Manchovy was awesome. Um, which several of my episodes that I directed had Manchovy involved, and I got to board out the introduction of Manchovy, which was really funny. He's basically introduced as like a Bond villain type, and he would just like splatter him on his face and lick him off with a big tongue.
Well, that's good.
All right, so she's complaining it's so hot. I mean, that's going to be sort of like what's happening in this scene, but we can take it back a little ways, and let's do something with him where he's not looking over at her right away. We see them in more of a neutral state. So I'm actually just going to change that to a different color instead of using the onion skin, which is a very handy feature. But sometimes it's just faster if you do it the other way.
Hey, Mike, how
Yeah,
common are tests when you're applying for a storyboarding job?
very.
And what do you need to know to generally to pass a storyboarding test?
Um, how to storyboard? I don't know. It's very subjective. That's the thing. Storyboard tests, um, to me, are an interesting but somehow rather flawed metric in a lot of ways. They can be very helpful. But what a lot of shows are actually looking for here, um, they want to see if you can do like show style. They want to see if your art sort of jives with what they're doing. I mean, it's different if you're on an established show versus like a season one show. Season one show, they're still figuring everything out. So, in a lot of ways, that is a more lenient thing because they haven't figured out their production yet. But if you have something that's a little bit more established, they're going to want to see if you can do what they're doing, because
Mm.
they don't want to hassle with somebody who's, uh, going to need a lot of hand holding. They want somebody that can get into production and just go.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I know
It's
of
much more. It's a much more practical thing than I think people give it credit
mhm.
for. Um, and it sucks because I think there's so many people that like get this idea that they didn't pass this one test and so their career's over and they're no good and they're all this and that. But I mean, it just could have been a logistical thing. Maybe they didn't see your test before they hired somebody already, and it's like, well, this guy would have been cool, but oh well. Or in some cases, it's a production that has somebody that they've worked with already before that they planned on hiring, and for legal reasons, they had to put the job or post the job somewhere, even though they already had it pretty well taken care of. You know.
Yeah.
So okay, so now we have him just sort of driving and her wilting here. And I changed that drawing, so I'm going to update it here. And he looks over and says, kind of like, oh, what's going on? All right. And then let's have her. See, and it's important to separate motions here. We have her in the same position, him in a different position. He changes position. She's in the same position. And then now she is going to have a different position that we're going to draw here in a second. So you don't want to put too much going on in one panel of the storyboard because then your eye doesn't track with anything. And we're going to have her Really just sort of leaning back. She's got sharp teeth.
I don't know why, but that's always funny.
We'll keep the bag on her head. And she'll just be like, I don't even care about this anymore. I just want to get out of this heat. And this rises a little bit because she's going to be leaning back. So we got shoulders a little bit higher. We got arm coming up like this. See more of the bottom of her head. The fins, I think, would raise kind of like ears. And then exasperated, spread out, webbed hands. I mean, not the most expressive thing ever, but she's tired. I don't even care anymore. It's just too hot. Fish flakes are sort of being shunted away. And of course,
really fun for whoever's doing the animation effects afterwards.
Well, I mean, storyboard here, you want to get the most creative poses possible. So, I mean, this isn't great, but we're on a time schedule, so it's going to have to do. And let's just copy some of these just to make it cool. So we use those in the other panels. All right, because I think, we could even do some just vector magic and make it a bigger.
That's great.
Or we could just get rid of this hand altogether, and it'll be like the teenager thing where it's just, I don't want anything, like that. Like my son, he's almost 4, and he's still like, what do you want? I don't want anything, and that's really something that's going to be amplified when he's a teenager. Because he's a very picky eater, and sometimes it's like, well, what do you want to eat? I don't want anything. So in which case, her, front area would sort of sag down as the head goes up. It gives it that nice contrast. You do the same thing with laughing cycles a lot of the time. I think the most effective laughing cycles are the one where the head and the shoulders go in opposite directions, So
squash and stretch.
Yeah. So we want to get a nice, good stretch out of that. We can even make those limbs come in a little bit farther to give it even that more, not desperate. I don't think desperate's the word, but more exasperated, maybe. Okay. All right. We don't have a ton of time, so we got to keep it moving right along. What's next? What else we got? It's so hot.
I feel like what needs to happen is that cold compress needs to float up.
That's funny. It's so hot. And then we'll close this mouth and then have the head just lean back even farther, maybe.
So like a resting pose.
like a resting pose. Let's get back that other brush.
So I know a lot of job applicants think of interviews as these sort of one-way interrogations, but interviews are also opportunities for applicants to interview management. Are there questions that you ask when, like during an interview?
When do I start?
That's a good one.
Um, well, I mean, it's there's interviews are often a two-way street in a lot of ways. I feel like not only is the management sizing you up for how well that you're going to fit in with the rest of the production crew, they're trying to see like, if you're the kind of person that's going to be a team player or a diva, and sometimes we don't get a lot of divas in this business, thankfully. There are some, but most of them are pretty far in between. Um, but they're looking to see if not only if you're going to fit into the production, but if they feel like you are just going to be a pleasure to work with or a pain, you know. So and skill notwithstanding, that's what other people besides the line producer or whoever supervising producer is going to be interviewing you is going to do. I mean, because there's that element of personality involved, with any production.
Are you fast? Are you good? Or are you easy to work with?
Yeah, and sometimes people will take easy to work with over,
The
good,
other two.
because, but I mean, it's a balance, right? It's a balance between most all things. So again, a big lesson that I said at Cal Arts is look to your left, look to your right. You're probably going to be working with these people for the rest of your life, so don't be a jerk to them.
And another thing too is that like soft skills can be learned. So even if you are not naturally someone who's very effusive or very easy to work with, you can work at it.
Yeah, and I think when the pandemic hit, it was like introverts were like, oh, "Is this heaven?" Because they didn't have to interact with anybody anymore. But
Our time has come.
yeah, and introverts will take over the world. But they said it. Introverts are taking over the world to themselves. It's very quietly.
I think this would be more like ASMR is taking over the world.
It's like I don't have a dog. I just chat in the it. Okay. And then it always bugs me when like people when they're driving somewhere. I had this conversation with my wife the other day that they never like look back at the road. They just like sit there and talk with one another by looking at one another. And obviously this isn't a long exchange, but you want to have them at least feel like they're paying attention to their driving, you
Yeah.
know?
Don't let them just turn and have like a full conversation.
Yeah. Because I mean maybe it's in the, smart car or something like that. Okay. So no half lids anymore. And one of the great things about again working in the digital realm is that you can just take elements and not have to totally redraw them. You just copy and paste them. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, don't be lazy. But if it works, hey, you're just saving time, man. It's called efficiency. Efficiency is always preferred because if you can get your work done faster, because let's face it, deadlines are always yesterday.
Well, if they weren't in a car, they would be efficiency.
Oh, I get it. I see that. I see what you did there. All right, I'm gonna take this panel actually, because it has basically what I want in it, and I'm just gonna move it to the end here. And that was a dad-worthy pun. Are you sure you don't have kids yet?
Not quite yet.
I mean, because you're training, obviously.
Yeah, maximum annoyance.
I mean, I'm sure your wife is just over the moon that you're so enthused about being a dad at some point. Let's give this a little bit more squash so it looks like it's animating all right. It's just little hints that you can do to give to the animation crew. You got squashed out bag, and then
that's good.
And then we're gonna copy this, and she's gonna reach up and put it back down on her face. I'm not going to move that quite yet. Let's just grab the one arm and have her reach up. We'll get rid of the open mouth. And again, a lot of the time you'll have dialogue and stuff for this that you can sort of pull from, which makes it a little easier to figure out exactly what you're going to do. But if you're boarding from scratch like this, a lot of the time you have to just sort of try and figure it out as you go, which, can be rather freeing, a lot of the time. Like when I was putting together the Race Around the Moon, a lot of that just is like, well, what do I want to happen here? And you have to think about it for a minute and be like, well, I think that, checking back with the overall story of these alien creatures racing around the moon, like what's going to turn the story, what's going to make it work here. And you have to kind of delve into that storytelling a little bit more. With a script, there's some of that, but a lot of it's already laid out for you. So it's just finding how to make it interesting more than anything else. And then we have this, and then we're going to do a new pose with her like sort of grabbing it and pushing it back down on her face. We have that hand there.
So, Mike, we are almost out of time. Is there anything that you would want to draw attention to?
Global warming. Except for where you're at, where it's not warm at all.
Oh, I mean, it's about averages, right?
Warmer than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
No, I think that, there's a couple things maybe. If you want to follow me on my Facebook art page, it's facebook.com/AnnaMikeArt, which is poorly maintained, just so you know. Although there's also past episodes of Collaboratory up on Toon YouTube channel, which we can get you something in some sort of link to just go and check out of former episodes. I think one of the biggest things is just keep coming back. We're having a good time doing this, and it's fun to just sit and chat about talking storyboards while improvising something. And thank you for your contributions, all of you that have contributed to this episode.
Yeah, this is always a blast. Do you want to do a quick run through of the animatic before we cut?
Sure. All right. Let me just get rid of this really quickly and put in her gill fins. Her face fins. It's not gills.
Face fins.
Face fins. All right. We started off with desert scene, and then we panned out to see a aquarium car rolling down highway, what would be 10 maybe? I'm not thinking it's probably highway or interstate 10 that goes between California and Arizona, because I'm more familiar with that. And then we said, oh, it's so hot. Why is it so hot? Bloop, 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 bloop. And then Ice Pack goes up. She's, now she's upset. And he's trying his best to drive and make sure that nothing's too major is happening over there. So that is just a little bit of what we can do in a very short amount of time. Not only did we come up with story, but we started getting into a storyboard in an hour, which I think is pretty cool. So keep storyboarding, everybody. If you don't have a copy of Storyboard Pro, get one, because you're going to need one, especially those of you who are applying for jobs. And if you're applying for a job for freelance or something like that, you're going to need it, because chances are the studio that you're going to be working for, especially in television, is going to be using Storyboard Pro.
All right. Well, thank you everyone who stuck around to the end of today's episode. If you're interested in practicing your storyboard skills, you can download a free 21-day trial of Storyboard Pro from our website. That is toonboom.com. And this Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 Pacific, we'll be interviewing the makers of Baker's Dozen, a series of independent animatic shorts made by Jesse and Ben Juono using Storyboard
Oh,
Pro. So I'm always excited to interview artists, so please tune in. That's it for today, and until next time.
and Jesse and Ben are amazing, so watch their thing.